I'd like to welcome everybody to the November 6th, 2019 Board of Education meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Bubba McLean to lead us in the flag pledge and the invocation.
Everyone will please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for all of our many, many blessings. We especially thank you for our dedicated employees, our hardworking students, and their families. Tonight, we ask that you grant us the peace to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. You all should have had time to consider our meeting agenda. Do I have any comments or potential changes to the agenda that we have on record already?
Mr. Chair, I move to amend the agenda to remove item 5.2 to recognize National Award winner Beth Gilligan, who is the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science, and place it on the December agenda. She is actually out of town, I believe at a conference. And replace it with new item 5.2, NC Career Development Month and NC Career Development Coordinator Day proclamation.
Okay, great. There's a motion to amend the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a second by Mr. Jake Godwin. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? That's unanimous. So the agenda has been amended. Okay. Next, public comment. And first off, I'd like our legal counsel, Mr. Neil Whitford. Oh, do I have approval for amending the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you very much, Tabby. Now, Mr. Whitford, can you remind us of the rules regarding public comment?
Mr. Chairman, the policy is that no speaker shall make obscene remarks or issue personal attacks or insults while addressing the board. Speakers shall not discuss any confidential information that they obtain from personnel files or student records. A complaint against an employee or student will not be aired during public comment, although this may be heard in closed session following consultation with the superintendent. There are rules with respect to time. I'm not looking at what that rule is, 3 minutes, I believe, and Kenny Peterson is the timekeeper, and he will show a green flag when there's 30 seconds remaining on the allotted time. And Mr. Chairman, I suggested that we do this reminder because in a previous meeting or so, there was an offensive word or two that some folks might consider to be obscene, and once the word was said, it was said, and so I just wanted to reiterate what the rules are so that we can keep proper decorum during these meetings.
Thank you very much. And Kenny, if you will do me a favor and help me out with regards to time, sometimes I can't see the changeover, so let me know and we'll help encourage a wrap up if necessary. Okay? But at this time, I'd like to please welcome Stephanie Gladwell to speak.
Thank you. My name is Stephanie Gladwell, and I am the mother of 3 children, a Croatan graduate, and 2 children currently enrolled, a senior and a junior. And I'd like to thank you for letting me speak, and more importantly, for listening. I'm here to speak about the athletic code of conduct, and more importantly, the 48-hour, 365 rule. my son has experienced the 365-day suspension from all Croatan athletics. I am not here to tell you that the baby is ugly. When I learned about the athletic code of conduct from Mr. Paler in a meeting with my husband and myself, I love the idea. I've never understood why 3 schools didn't have the same policies. I work for a large company. It doesn't matter if you're in Missoula, Montana, or Eastern North Carolina, we all have the same rules. But somewhere, something got muddled. The intent was fabulous, and I still believe that it should be executed. But it was not executed the same way at every school. It was not as transparent at one school as it was in the other. Consequently, something happened at Croatan, don't know, can't go back and change it. But there is not one parent of any student athlete who ever knew about a revised athletic code of conduct. It is not marked. It was never all called. There was no email, absolutely nothing. And the word revision means there is a change. And I do believe that when there is a change, like in a speed limit, I am told, we are all told that there's going to be a revised speed limit, and then it is up to us to follow it. That didn't happen. And I believe that you all are for the good of people and the good of children and to make them stronger people. And what happened with this code and the athletic suspension turned out to be bullying from my daughter, who does not have a dog in the fight. Fellow students were mean and cruel to her because while my son was only charged, the rumor got out that he was convicted of DUI. He has been judged by his peers. He has been judged by his teachers. Adults don't look him in the eye. A neighbor came to another neighbor and said, "Did you know that Walker Gladwell was convicted of drunk driving? Do we want him in our neighborhood?" My son was charged. He is yet to be in front of a judge. And what happened to him was a parental issue. It didn't have anybody, nobody in the school was involved, no students. And I'm asking you, as good people, fair and reasonable people who believe in children, to revise the policy and to revise it not only for my son, but for other people and other students who are not victimized by it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Walker Gladwell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Walker Gladwell. First, I want to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to speak here. For all those that came out tonight, it means a lot to me. I am a student at Carteret High School. I've been there for 4 years now. I'm a student athlete. I take part in both the football team and the wrestling team. It's something that's really my pride and joy in my life. It's what I work hard to, what motivates me in school and work and everything I do. I just want to be the best, and to me, best is the standard. I plan to attend a college and university and join the military after. I hold strongly to the values of helping my neighbor, my community, and my country. I don't believe y'all are here to put me down in any way. I think we're here as a community to lift up and to help, and that's really why I'm here today. It's bothersome to me because I feel as a community that we should be here to help each other, and I want to be lifted, and I want to be brought together and included. The Carteret High School mission statement is dedicated to shaping the leaders and dreamers of tomorrow. And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to help me do that, to help me accomplish what I want to do, to be one with my community. I bleed black and gold. I wouldn't want to do anything else athletically or academically in my accomplishments anywhere elsewhere. I'm so proud to live in a small town and to live right here in North Carolina on the coast. Not a lot of people can say that. And it's just when I just feel that from this experience, I'm not necessarily learning anything. I feel like I've just been, okay, you made a mistake, and then now it's kind of stripped away from me. And I want to be a beacon. I want to be, just like I am a captain, a leader, and a senior, and I want to carry my guidance on to those of the rest of the student athletes. I want to be able to help them and to be, a reminder of, one, you shouldn't get yourself in this situation to begin with. I fully admit to the prosecution of my name, 100%. I'm not here to deny that. But I want to help other people, and I want to be there as someone to go to and someone just, to learn from. And I think that if I can continue to do what I do on the athletic field, on the mat, and in the classroom, it'll make me a great individual. And I just want to be presented with that opportunity. And once again, thank you all for having me tonight. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Speaker number 3, Mr. James Walker.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for giving me this opportunity. This is going to be very, very short. Got prayer meeting, Bible study. I got my chair already right there at the church, so it's not going to be long. I would like to tell you something about your superintendent, Mr. Bottoms. When he was at West Carteret High School, he was the band director. My son was in that band program. But what's so important about him being there at that point in time was that he had 2 students that went through his band program that left West Carteret and went to college and got degrees in music. Now those 2 students are actually vying for Teacher of the Year, Craven County and Oslo County. Congratulations, Mr. Bottoms, and that program. Thank you, people.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. That concludes our public comment session. Now I'd like to turn turn this over to Mr. Matt Bottoms, who is going to present Financial Department Awards.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Our finance department has done an incredible job. They keep us on the straight and narrow, and they have just gone through an intense audit. And so tonight we want to bring them forward, and Blair Probst will present them the accolades that they have so well earned.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So Carteret County Public School System's Finance Department has again achieved 2 top financial awards, and it is my pleasure to share a little bit about these awards with you. However, right now I want to bring up the Finance Department. They've been looking forward to this all day. Our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Kathy Carswell. Our Deputy Finance Officer, Julie Bernatsky. Our Senior Accountant, Casey Harris. You guys can come over here so everybody can see you. Our senior our accounts payable assistant, Serena Cannon. And our benefit specialist, Kim Guyton. So let me tell you a little bit about these awards. These awards are for the Carteret County Public School System's comprehensive annual financial report that were issued last month. The school system has continuously received a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. This award is presented for excellence in the preparation and issuance of the system's annual finance report. ASBO, as it is called, is a professional association that provides programs and services to promote the highest standards of school business management practices, professional growth, and effective use of educational resources. So they have been given this pretty little plaque, and I think you guys have like a wall of those plaques, so we'll just add that one to it. The just keeps going. Somebody, you might end up with it here in a second. Likewise, the Carteret County Public School System's Finance Department has regularly received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. Wow. This certificate is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting. GFOA is a nonprofit professional association serving 12,625 government finance professionals across the country and in Canada. The attainment of this recognition is significant accomplishment by the government body and its management. They have received, again, I'll let everybody see this. This is a plaque that we have in our office, and they don't get one of these every year. They just get a little thing to put on top of it. And I brought it to Kathy's attention that from 2012 to 2018, the only one that is missing is 2013, when she was hired. And she assures me that 13 is somewhere around here. We just don't have it on the plaque. So when we find that, we'll put it on there. But in all seriousness, I commend the finance department and all that they do. They do a fabulous job. I say that with all sincerity because the HR department works with them right together. We are always in each other's offices and have conversations, and they do a fabulous job. And so on behalf of Carteret County Schools and the board, we commend you and thank you for all that you do.
I would just like to say that I'm very blessed to work with this department and for the leaders that we work under. So I'm just very thankful for that.
Keep up the good work.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Next, our amended agenda is going to have us recognize there's an NC Career Development Month and NC Career Development Coordinator Day. So I have a proclamation to read. Okay? So this is State of North Carolina Roy Governor Cooper proclamation. Whereas career development coordinators and career and technical education CTE programs in North Carolina's public schools are committed to helping students explore their potential in personal social development, educational achievement, and lifelong learning, and career management within the National Career Department Guidelines Framework. And whereas career development coordinators provide the supporting materials to ensure our schools meet the national standards and competencies established by the National Career Development Association. And whereas career development coordinators support the mission of North Carolina's CTE programs by providing community resources and services that help students succeed in life, college and or careers, citizen readiness, and as productive members of society. And whereas career development coordinators assist students with career planning and empower students to make informed decisions regarding their post-high school plans, which may include immediate employment in a civilian or military occupation, or further education at a vocational program, community college, or university. And whereas career development education contributes to increased attendance, raises achievement, improves graduation rates, and prepares students for college, careers, and citizen readiness. And whereas career development coordinators assist students in understanding the 16 career clusters in the National Career Clusters Framework, which is made up of 79 career pathways to success in college, career, and citizen readiness. Through career development education, CTE students gained critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, leadership, and interpersonal skills necessary to thrive in the modern business world and contribute to the vibrancy and vitality of our state and nation. Now, therefore, I, not me, but Roy Cooper, Governor of the State of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim November 2019 as North Carolina Career Development Month, and November 13, 2019 as North Carolina Career Development Coordinator Day in North Carolina, and commend observance to all citizens. So, and we have some CTE people with us today. Ms. D's back in the back. Anybody else? Thank you very much for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Let's see. Next, recognize Carteret County Public School accolades. Okay, presented by Mr. Matt Bottoms.
Thank you. This agenda item titled Recognize Carteret County Public School System Accolades seems perfect as next week is American Education Week. About 85% of the nation's kids are educated in its public schools. Every child is welcome in our schools, regardless of economic status, religion, race, or gender, but also regardless of learning disability, physical disability, or other such factors. Our classrooms are as diverse as our communities, and we use that diversity to teach our students how to be great people with passion for one another, again, regardless of our differences. Our teachers, administrators, and staff work tirelessly to impact every child in the school. From the rich to the poor, from the gifted to the challenged, from the kid who solves a calculus problem to the kid who welds a trailer. Every one of them matters, and our staff works diligently to make all of them smarter today than they were yesterday and smarter tomorrow than they are today. Our staff is committed to excellence. They know that excellence is not our goal, it's our standard. Carteret County Public Schools released last year's test scores a few months ago and set all-time records for student achievement and growth, and that is with 15 days of school missed due to the hurricane devastation. After that storm, the Carteret County Schools family reached out to every kid, not only after the storm left its devastation in every part of the county, but throughout the year. The tragedy we saw after Florence's departure showed our community and our state just how much passion we have for our students and their futures. Every child counts every day. It's what we do. That, building strong relationships with our students and their families, is the secret to excellent test scores and high achievement. I thank the families who trust us to help them educate their children. We take that responsibility seriously, and by all accounts, our schools are doing a tremendous job. It is my honor to be a part of such an amazing school system, and I take great pride in using every available opportunity to brag about it. I wish all of the Carteret County Public School teachers, administrators, and staff, and their incredible students a wonderful American Education Week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bottoms. Item 6 is our consent agenda. On the consent agenda is item 6.1, which is to consider approval of Board of Education meetings of October 1st, 2019. 6.2 is to consider personnel matters. 6.3 is to consider fundraiser requests. 6.4 to consider student transfers. 6.5 to consider appointments to the Carteret County Public School Foundation and Board of Directors. 6.6 is to consider the 2020-2021 budget planning calendar. 6.7 is consider a contract for West Carteret High School condensers. Board members, you should have had time to review the consent agenda. Are there any comments or questions regarding the items on our consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, is there a second by Ms. Ehlers? We have a motion and a second. Let's see, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, that is approved. Our consent agenda is approved. Thank you very much. Item 7 is the consent agenda from September. Since our meeting was canceled due to the hurricane, we have 8 items on that consent agenda. Item 7.1 is to consider approval of Board of Education meetings from August 6, 2019. Item 7.2 to consider personnel matters. Item 7.3 to consider fundraiser requests. Item 7.4 is to consider student requests. Item 7.5 is to consider school advisory board recommendations. Item 7.6 is consider beginning teacher plan. Item 7.7, consider contract with Maxim Healthcare Services. 7.8 is consider the memorandum of understanding with Carteret County Department of Social Services. So, board members, are there any questions or any comments or anything else, discussion about item number 7, the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Ms. Ehlers. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Godwin will second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, the consent agenda for September passes. Okay, next, an amended item 8.0 is to consider our audit report. Okay, and that will be presented by Adam Skeperek. Okay, all right, come on down, Mr. Skeperek.
Thank you. Yes, another year. I appreciate you moving me up. We just issue boring letters. I think if I would have spray painted this gold and mounted it to some marble, it might have gotten an actual clap or a standing ovation. But nonetheless, this is the key component to the finance award that finance just received. It's the beginning of the comprehensive annual financial report. It's the audit report that's actually submitted to the LGC, approved to the LGC, and we take that report and we add a bunch more data, and that becomes your CAFR that gets submitted and reviewed by an accountant in some other state, making sure that it applies all the required regulations for financial excellence and presentation. So I'm presenting today. You should each have a blue bound book along with a 3-page letter to the board. The letter is addressed to you as the governing body that actually hires us to perform the audit of management. Just letting you know that the audit went as planned. We didn't have any issues conducting the audit, no disagreements with management on how to apply accounting standards, had relative free access to all the information we needed to conduct the audit. So that letter is just to let you know no issues and no major changes either as far as accounting principles or accounting standards. There'll be a new one coming next year related to a topic we discuss every year now for the last 5 or 6 years, the pension plan and the OPEB plan. You know, that information was added to the statements over the last few years, and it really complicates them, muddies up some of the comparison. The pension and OPEB, they're still going to be presented going forward, but they're going to be moved over into an agency's fund. So in the accounting world, it's a big pronouncement next year that's going to kind of change the way the statements look, make them better, back to the way they were before 5 or 6 years ago when we started having to include millions of dollars of post-employment benefit liabilities to the statement. So they'll still be in there, but they'll be in a back fund and not mixed in with your other expenditures that you actually write checks for. So that's going to come down the pipeline next year. So anyway, this year though, 2019, if you would turn to page 1. This is our independent report. Again, a boring letter, but a very important letter, letting you know that we believe that these financial statements are accurate. At the bottom of page 1, our opinion paragraph basically states that, in our opinion, we feel that these financial statements accurately reflect the net position of the school system as of June 30, 2019, and the financial activity for the year that ended. So this is what's called a clean, unmodified opinion letter. Next, I'll have you turn to page 14, Exhibit 3. So Exhibits 1 and 2, they treat the school system as if it was a company. It combines all of your funds. It's a balance sheet and income statement for all your funds combined, along with the value of all of your buildings, the value of all these post-employment benefits, and it really shows a lot of information or a net position of negative millions of dollars, as if you're actually got a net negative value. But you don't borrow money, so you don't need a net worth. You don't need to know what your portions of post-employment benefits are, because the state's going to pay those. But nonetheless, they're still included in that Exhibits 1 and 2. Exhibit 3 starts the fund statements, and this is where you see your fund balance. This is where you see the balance sheet for your governmental funds. And some key numbers that I want to point out here. That first column, that's your general fund. At the bottom of that column, your fund balance as of June 30, 2019 in your local fund, $2,296,000. And of that, $994,000 is unassigned. So when you're comparing year to year, those two numbers really are key numbers in looking at how well you did for the year and where you stand. So you have $2.2 million of fund balance, but that fund balance is partially made up of inventory. Inventory, you can't write a check with, you can't cash it. it is already money that's been spent. So you have a value of fund balance that is in the form of inventory. So we take that $2.2 million, and you can see up above, non-spendable fund balance, $593,000. That is the value of your inventory. So while it makes up a portion of fund balance, you can't use it to balance the budget next year. You also have $29,000 of fund balance that is restricted by state statute. You can't budget funds that weren't collected before June 30 of the previous year, just to keep you out of trouble. They don't want you writing checks based on receivables. So they actually restrict that in the state statute, and that's pulled out of that $2.2 million of fund balance. This year it's only $29,000, but it can fluctuate. If you have a large receivable, again, they don't want you budgeting that money until it's actually been collected. So
when is this money going to get collected with the state budget not passed yet?
well, this is your local fund, so this isn't coming from the state. This would be fines and forfeitures coming from the county, and it was received in July. It just wasn't received before June 30th. Therefore, it can't be allocated in the next year's budget, in the 1920 budget. It is simply a timing. It was June fines and forfeitures received in July, but state statute won't let you budget that funds in the 1920 year because it was still outstanding as of June 30th. Then you have $678,000. That's the amount that's already been budgeted in the 1920 year. So prior to issuing these statements, you've worked up a budget estimating the use of $678,000 of fund balance, and that's shown there in that assigned for subsequent years' expenditures. And that leaves you with the $994,000 of unassigned fund balance. All right, you also have your other special revenue fund, $2.2 million of fund balance. This is where you house all of your state and federal grants and Medicaid money, funds that come in that have restrictions for special uses. You also have $7.6 million of capital outlay fund balance. This is because you received a large amount of funds from North Carolina for hurricane relief. Those funds, if they go unused, have to be sent back to to DPI. So you have $7.6 million of capital outlay fund balance, but you see up above, $7.4 million of that is restricted for either hurricane repairs or payment back to DPI for any unused portion.
What time period do we have to spend that money?
I've read it's years. It's years. Okay. Yeah. And they're going to track it quarterly. They're going to take all of your expenditures that are hurricane related, back out all of your insurance receipts, all your FEMA receipts, and come up to what a net number that you're allowed to keep from that allotment that was sent down. And that allotment was like $12,419,000. So again, that money, anything unused, will be sent back.
And that's something that we hadn't even talked about with the finance department, the fact that they're running, almost $80 million system on top of all this FEMA money and restrictions. So congratulations on getting it all right. Thank you.
Yeah, and if while we're on that topic, you can see just the excess of revenue and expenditures run through the school system this year. It's on page 61. It's kind of a detailed income statement for that capital outlay fund. And you see you've received $12.4 million from DPI. You had $4,595,000 of FEMA money that was considered federal FEMA, the 75%, and then $1.5 million that was the 25% state part of FEMA. So, you've received, nearly $19 million extra that you have to account for and use towards hurricane relief. So again, going forward, however long it takes you to spend that money or decide that you don't need it, we'll track the unused portion that must be sent back right there in that line in the financial statements, so that it's not available to appropriate for anything else other than hurricane expenditures.
What we don't spend, the state's gonna take back.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure the exact number of counties, if it was 7 or 8. There was $60 million given out to you guys, Duplin, Onslow, Bladen, basically to fund in looking at the insurance coverage for all the counties and how they differed, and also the fund balance situation, how that differs from county to county. This money was sent out so that companies like ServPro could keep working, because there were some districts where if they hadn't gotten paid, they were going to be pulling out and leaving schools in shambles. So that $60 million was sent out again as an emergency relief to keep spending and cover some of the disaster money that insurance probably should have covered. And that going forward, there's new requirements on insurance coverage because of this. So, that $60 million went to a handful of counties. You got one of the larger portions of it. So.
And it would have been larger had Mr. Bottoms not jumped on this. I don't know if anybody remembers so long ago that all the neighboring counties were out of school for weeks. And Mr. Bottoms was out during the storm, right after it passed, and was contacting contractors to get us back up and running. So that number would have been 2 or 3 times higher had you not done what you did. So thank you again.
And also, you received FEMA money a lot quicker than other districts have. You've received quite a bit of FEMA money already, whereas some are still just in the process. And that's a whole nother battle of, requiring all the information in order to get reimbursed from FEMA is not a fun task.
And that's thanks to our financial.
It is. And if I might interject, that money from the state was incredibly important, and I wrote our representatives and told them in the future that is something that has to happen. It would be like you having a car totaled and you're going to wait for insurance. They go ahead and give you the money and then let insurance work it out later. And insurance still hasn't paid any. And so that's how we've been able to survive. And FEMA was months and months before they sent their first check. So we were able to get these people, get them in, get them paid, and get them out. And so that was incredibly important. We don't make anything off of it. There's no leftover money. It always goes back to the state. So.
Yep, that's right. So in the meantime, though, that is a state award. It was audited for compliance. We sampled those expenditures, made sure that they were truly for hurricane relief. But it just, again, nuances added to the statements this year between FEMA, federal dollars, this allocation from the state dollars. Your schedule of awards looks a lot different than normal. So, all right, any questions there on Exhibit 3? Again, that's that balance sheet. That capital outlay fund balance will be something to watch for the next few years. Page 16 is the income statement for those governmental funds. Again, the general fund, that first column, most important fund balance number. At the bottom, you used $281,000 of fund balance in your general fund this year. And that's what took it from 2.6 down to basically $2.3 million. So the state column is the next column, and you mentioned no state budget. Your largest funding source is the state of North Carolina. They contributed $51.1 million to the school system this year, but they carry no fund balance. It's use it or lose it. A lot of that money comes in the form of position allotments. So you're not just getting $51 million, you're getting X number of positions. And so how you utilize that, those positions dictate how efficient you use those state dollars. Again, falls on finance to be a part of that. But again, with them not carrying fund balance and the annual increases in state salaries, they fund the portion of people run through the state. But you still have $23 million of local funding that funds some, those same teachers that you run out of positions to fund funding in state. So anytime there's a state increase, you'll find the need for the county to also fund those increases, and those don't always come at the same speed. And so that's where fund balance comes in. You can absorb those delays in funding, or when those increases come in, when the retirement rate goes up 1%, which it's now at like 19%. Projections show it could go up to 30% in the next 10 years. Those are all expenditures that go up across all funds. And yes, the state will cover the $51 million, their portion, but with your $23 million from the county, it's used to fund a significant number of salaries and benefits that are going up as well. And so that's, again, where that fund balance is really key in weathering those increases and not having to make tough decisions every time salaries go up.
Your professional opinion of $1 million unassigned fund balance for a system our size?
It's fairly low. When you use $280,000 in a year, I look at that as that's 3 years of doing exactly the same thing. And it's hard to do exactly the same thing when your retirement benefits go up 1%, which will equate to $500,000 over all funds, and maybe $100,000 in local, just by the retirement rate going up.
And how does our fund balance compare to school systems of surrounding counties?
Can
you tell us that?
It depends on who you compare to in the surrounding area. If I don't know, Pender, and our firm does Onslow, but I don't do Onslow. I do Brunswick. I do Bladen, Currituck. Your fund balance. The declining fund balance over the last few years is a trend that is common in coastal districts, except for like Onslow and Brunswick. Their funding agreements have led to increases in fund balance over the last few years.
Percentage-wise, what do you see? 2, 3, 4%?
It really varies. It's county by county, and it's the politics of the county. It's the relationship between school board and county as to your requirement to manage your own fund balance versus if you need money, come ask us. That's the mentality that a lot of counties take, and have kind of held out funding to get school systems into a position where there is very little fund balance to manage. And it's really about every increase needed, every new position. If you need a new EC position to stay competitive with surrounding counties, come to us. Ask for the $50,000, ask for the $80,000, and that's becoming more and more common. A lot of districts are being forced to use fund balance, but it puts you in a tough spot when a disaster comes. If you only have so much fund balance, you can only write so many checks to companies like ServPro or whoever you use to dry out your schools. I mean, and we're talking millions of dollars of expenditures. That it helps to have some money in the bank when something like that happens. So yeah, I look at the fund balance compared to how much you're using. So you use $300,000 and you've got $900,000 left. You're coming to a point where if you're using $300,000 a year, it's going to be tough to turn it around and add to fund balance. It's like steering a giant ship. It takes a long time to go from using $300,000 to just adding $100,000. Because especially when you look at how many of the expenditures in local that you're funding with fund balance are reoccurring expenditures. Again, there's $400,000 of tough decisions to be made in order to go from using $300,000 to adding $100,000. You see the again, capital outlay back to that $7.6 million of fund balance. You added 7.5. You've really, over the years, have carried very little dollars in fund balance, so all of that fund balance is associated with these restricted hurricane funds. Any questions about these funds? You also have a business type fund on page 22, your school food service fund. So this fund is different than your governmental funds in that we actually have to book their portion of the pension and OPEB liabilities directly into the fund. So right now their fund balance is negative $1.3 million. You're not $1.3 million in the hole. So what you really look at now for comparing your child nutrition fund to previous years, the change in cash. Cash in the bank is still cash in the bank. And so at the very top of page 22, cash and cash equivalents, $1,262,000. That's an increase of $109,000 from the year before. So positive direction cash flow wise. Now again, cash flow can be modified through timing of receivables and timing of payables, but your receivables and payables are so small, you're not adjusting a $109,000 increase with that. You're maybe adjusting a few $1,000s. So again, included in your expenditures and in your fund balance is these giant liabilities that will be coming off and going over into their own agency fund where they won't mess with anything. So you'll actually get to a real true fund balance number in school food service again, but still cash is cash. So
What about the insurances? Is that part of this that's on the liability part?
yeah, the post-employment retirement health benefit, is that the insurance you're talking about?
Now that plus the insurance we had to pay like on school bus, maintenance or whatever in those areas where something happens, somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, all that insurance, those expenditures are on the governmental fund side, in the general fund. The insurance, the liabilities I'm talking about here that are affecting this so negatively is the retiree benefits. Their health care is paid after they retire. The state gets an actuary to tell you how big that number is, and it's big, 30-some billion dollars, and your portion might be 1%, and your child nutrition's portion is 2% of that, but that 2% still equals $1.9 million. And so that $1.9 million is showing up as a liability on your child nutrition fund, but it's a liability you'll never pay in the form of cash out for that liability. You pay it when you pay 19% retirement rate for every dollar of salary paid. And so the retirement health liability, it's a giant liability, it's unfunded. That $35 billion liability has about $3 billion in the bank to pay for it. So it's just a giant unfunded liability. It's a giant promise to retirees. The pension plan is actually, North Carolina actually has a well-funded pension plan. I think it's funded to about 85% of the total liability. So that's that big liability for every dollar of liability, there's 85 cents in an investment account somewhere to pay that liability. So the pension plan is relatively healthy compared to other states, but the retirement health, it's an unfunded promise.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just chime in, last year when Adam was here, I think you did a tens of $1 million write-down for these kinds of things.
Yep.
And I didn't understand. And so I got on the telephone and I talked to Adam and I called the state treasurer's office and I talked to the school of government, and I still don't understand. Let me tell you what I think is happening. And I don't know if this is a policy of the state of North Carolina or if it's through the treasurer's office or just what. But it seems to me that the state is taking its liability and forcing it onto the balance sheets of all of the school systems in this case. But for example, this $1.9 million for the net OPEB, and this is in nutrition.
That's right. That's yep.
That's not the Carteret County Public School System liability. That's the state's liability, and yet they've kind of forced it on you and all the other school systems to show it like this. And I think what happens is it comes off the state books, and it makes the state books look better, but it's at the expense of your books. And
it ends up on both of your books. So, and don't get mad at the state. It wasn't their fault. It's the guys who write governmental accounting standards. Every state has to do it. Every county has to do it. It's a nationwide. The governmental accounting standard boards, they decide how statements should look, and they decided that these liabilities, while they are the state liabilities, it would be important for you to see what your portion of that is for whatever reason. And I think when they decided that, after the first few statements were written, they quickly realized this does nobody any good. And so whenever you pass a GASB, it takes years before it's implemented. Everybody's warned, and so these were implemented, and then they rewrote it, basically saying, all right, let's rethink including it right here in the fund. It is a state liability. The state is acting as an agent for the school system in collecting and then paying that liability. And so again, these will be moved over into their own special fund where they'll be by themselves, and they can just be 10 to 15 pages of information, but they won't muddy up the rest of the dollars in the statements. So again, they're still presented at the state level, but it's also on your books too. It's just, again, your portion of the total state liability. So after those statements, you have your cash flow statement, again showing you how we added $109,000 to child nutrition's cash. Again, that's a positive direction. I think there have been some cash usage over the last 2 years, so to actually add $109,000 in cash while having reduced days to actually serve lunch, that's a positive in the right direction. So after that, we have 30 pages of footnotes that describe your accounting policies, describe all your receivables, your payables, describe in detail those pension and OPEB liabilities, how the actuaries calculated them. They actually even show you in here, there's a giant window that says, all right, here's our assumptions, here's our discount rate, and that equaled this liability. But if we had changed the discount rate by 1%, positive and minus, that $30 million liability would have become $60 million, or it could have been $10 million. So they show you just how big of a guess these liabilities really are. But the point is, though, there's still a big liability. Whether it's a $30 billion liability, 20, 40, 50, 60s, it changes every year with an actuarial calculation. So. Next thing I want to go over, not only do we do a financial statement audit, I told you that your schedule awards look a little different because you got all this federal FEMA money, all of the state hurricane relief money. So we audit your state and federal dollars for compliance. We also look at your internal control structure. And so on page 63 starts 3 letters. First one is a letter on internal controls. And this just states that we found no material weaknesses in your control structure, no significant deficiencies, nothing that we thought would cause weaknesses in your financial reporting. So again, this is considered a clean opinion letter over your internal controls. Page 65 and 67, these are compliance letters. One is for your state dollars and one is for your federal dollars. And both of these state that we, in conducting our audit, noted no question costs, no findings in relation to how you spent the state and federal dollars that we audited for compliance. So again, those are considered clean letters. And on page 69, you see the federal programs that we audited as major. Child nutrition this year and your FEMA dollars. And on page 70, your state dollars, the state public school fund, we audit that for compliance every year, again, because that's that $51 million that you get. So it has to be audited for compliance every year. And we also audited the state Hurricane Florence disaster recovery funds and your NC pre-K funds. Yeah. Is it too much to ask? Yeah. I am glad, it's nice coming and presenting these statements in November rather than December or January, because that means the weather held out through September and October and there was no delay in the audit. But in order to have your books closed out and have them all ready for two strangers to come in and ask a bunch of questions for 4 or 5 days straight, it takes a lot of preparation for that. And the request for information, they get a letter on, usually it's like July 2nd, of here's the list of 70 items that we're going to want to see when we get there on day one. So it takes a lot to manage the finances, to manage an extra $19 million of state and federal funds, have it all in line, have it reported consistently and accurately even throughout the year. Our audit procedures aren't just right at year end. And so if we have evidence of inappropriateness or incorrectness during the year, that would show up in findings and internal control weaknesses. And so the preparation that goes in maintaining all that while working on the next year's budget in order to allow us to come in here in September, conduct the audit, and get a report issued in order to present to a November 6th meeting, it takes a lot of work from both us and finance. And so I appreciate Kathy and her staff and how they prepare for us and allow us to do our job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Skipper? Okay.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve our audit report as presented?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, second by Ms. Wheatley. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, that is approved. Next, we have item 8.1 and 8.2. 8.1 is to receive the revised 2019-2020 school calendar, and then we also have the 2020-2021 school calendar draft. Mr. Bottoms, can you handle these for us, please?
Be glad to. Each year when the board approves the calendar, they give us a selection of days from which we can choose makeup days. And this year with Hurricane Dorian, we missed 3 days, and so we had chosen the Columbus Day holiday and then January 2nd and 3rd, not knowing at that time of year if we would have more hurricanes to deal with. The school leadership, principals, and I have met, and we feel very confident that we can use accumulated hours for January 2nd and 3rd and give our students the full 2 weeks for the holiday break. We do realize that winter weather is coming, but that is part of the second semester, so we would want to make up those days in second semester. We will still consider the days, obviously, that we have listed on our calendar, plus the Saturdays, plus perhaps even more accumulated hours if we have them. So we will continue or revert to the January 2nd and 3rd as holidays for the students.
So we're gonna make that up in longer hours.
Right. We already build that into our calendar to start with. So our days are longer than they have to be already. For the teachers, they will be work days. They can take those off if they have hours, but it will not. They have to work. The students can use accumulated hours. The staff can't use accumulated hours. I know they would like to. All right, for the next year's calendar, we have prepared a draft that looks very much like this year's calendar. It starts with a couple of weeks of teacher work days. Starts on August 24th, which is the Monday closest to the 25th, I think, or it's 26th, the way that statute reads. We did the 2 days of Thanksgiving, the 2 weeks at Christmas, the couple of days between the semesters for the high schools, and we end on June 4th. And so that calendar, I sent you a copy of that some time ago, and it's very much just moved down a year or a day as the year progresses. So it's nothing unusual. Principals have looked at all the options in the world. They have turned it upside down and backwards, trying to make something more out of it than what's here. But this is the best we could do with what we were given.
I see again that we're not honoring Columbus Day again.
It's on the 12th of October.
Yes.
It's like a work day.
It's a work day.
Well, the blue day, the next week is an early release, 19th, isn't it?
You might be on
I'm looking, October 19th, teacher work day.
I have a question about the makeup days on this year, current year.
Okay.
So if we had a snowy February, we only have like a day in March to use, and then we're looking at like spring break, but.
We didn't include it, and we would have to go back to the board for this, but we could extend our school year. We are ending earlier than the state requires. So we do have the option of extending the school year a day or two. The spring break would be a last resort, and it is listed in the days that we could use, but
Right.
we would try to stay away from that. But we had talked about using Saturdays if possible.
Instead of adding on to the end of the
Instead of
year.
adding on, and we had looked at the options. In fact, we would also eliminate those early release days. They give us back 3 hours, so you eliminate 2 of those, you got another day back.
Okay.
So
And Mr. Bottoms, I know we are somewhat restricted, or not somewhat, we're very restricted with the flexibility we have in constructing this calendar, and I do appreciate the work you've done and also that our principals and our calendar committee have done in putting forth this draft. I am curious if it might be possible for us to at least review the possibility of a modified calendar whereby we would have it similar to what Brunswick County is considering right now, where we would do what is considered a modified year-round, which don't get worried, it doesn't mean we're going school year-round, but there are certain things that can be accomplished, that we can do that would allow us flexibility in being able to change our calendar. Some of the advantages, one of the big advantages is we would be able to finish off our semester, our fall semester before the Christmas break, rather than coming back after Christmas for a week only to have our final exam. So that's one big benefit. Another big benefit is right now we're pretty much forced to have a couple of weeks worth of teacher work days at the very beginning before school starts. And because we're doing this, first of all, that's a long time. I guess from what I understand, teachers don't necessarily need that long of a time, but because of our hands being tied, we kind of have to do that as well. If we were not having to put 2 weeks worth of work days all at the very beginning of the school year, then we could sprinkle those work days a little bit more throughout the year. And then that would give us a lot more flexibility when we have hurricanes and other bad weather, where we could utilize those work days throughout the year that we're not able to utilize now because they're already passed at the beginning of the school year. There are like quite a few other advantages. Yes, I know there are some cons as well, but is that something that you can investigate for us to be able to consider?
I am a little aware of this. Because other districts are already doing it. This is not trailblazing. Last year, I would say there were close to maybe 10 to a dozen school systems who did this same thing. Some of those were mountain school systems, and again, Brunswick, New Hanover are looking at that along with several other systems. So we can certainly dive into that, see how they're using the rules in the calendar law to see how it can apply to Carteret County, and we can investigate that. We can put together some sample calendars, what they would look like. And we can run a survey if you'd like to see what the public opinion would be. We can run that on our website. Just a few questions, not anything 30 or 40 questions, but, what do you think or how would it work? we could do some of those things if you'd like, just to test the waters and see how it would go.
Definitely. And from the research I've done, it appears that we would, if we did utilize such a modified calendar, it would result in us perhaps starting a couple weeks early, or week and a half to maybe 2 weeks early. It would be like the second week of August that we would start, but we would get out and finish before Memorial Day. It would also result in us having 3 weeks of vacation at Christmas time rather than 2. But the net effect over the long time, other than the very first summer, we will not have shorter summers. It isn't like we're going to shorten our summer down and be without. We're going to have a shorter summer than all the rest of our years. But it would result in after the first summer. It would result in essentially a shift of the calendar. So we're shifting the calendar so that entire semester is before the Christmas holiday. So a shifting of our summer, not a shortening of our summer. I just want to make sure that's clear. And I also want to make sure it's clear that we're not talking about students going to school year round. Not doing that at all. But it's something, at least I think from everything I've heard, it would be very beneficial for students and for teachers and for staff. It's something that at least is worth looking at.
And I think that's a great point that you make about the summer, the length of the summer, because I think when we shifted from what the earlier start 20 years ago to what we use now, there was the illusion that summers were going to get longer, when actually they stay the same. It's just a shift in it, and whether it's 2 weeks earlier or 2 weeks later, it's a shift. As you said, all but the first year as you adjust to that. So, but we can put together some things.
And one more advantage would be when kids graduate early from high school, they'd be ready to go on to CCC or to their college. There wouldn't be this crossover of we're not finished up. I mean,
right.
We'd be done at Christmas, so everybody in January would be ready to start
whatever they wanted to.
And we would be
really lining up with the community college
exactly.
calendar.
Yeah.
Would be the goal of all this.
It would make it much easier for our high school students to be able to take classes on the same schedule as the community colleges. They'd be able to take more community college classes easier than having a different shifted schedule than our, between the community college and our high schools. So that's another big advantage is the alignment with our community college, and it would align more with the universities as well. So there are a lot of advantages. And again, I know that there's a concern from public as far as, or at least from local businesses, I think about some employment and being able to handle employment needs that are currently being filled by high school students. So that is one concern which we're sensitive to. So we definitely going to have to weigh all the pros and cons. So.
You got that state law still in effect, right? The code law.
That's, Mr. Chairman, that's what you're going to be rubbing up against.
Right.
You're on this calendar because of the state law. Now, there is an exception for year-round, and maybe some of the school systems are massaging the definition of year-round to let this happen.
That's what's going on right now. That I know.
One way or another, there's going to be tension with the state calendar law. And
yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that most school people would agree with the comments that you made in terms of the flexibility and lining up with the community college and the university systems. But the Chamber of Commerce might not, and so just keep that in mind.
And all that definitely needs to be explored.
Is it possible for us to have a draft calendar and send it out also to our educators and our school staff so that we can get their feedback as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions or comments regarding the calendar? We'll wait until we get some of the results that you guys are going to be investigating before we look at approving the calendar for next school year.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman,
do we have to have a motion for that, to postpone or something like that effect?
We're receiving, I believe this is just receiving
It was just
information.
information tonight. It's only a month or two before we get it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, all this problem would be solved if the law was changed.
Which we've been hoping and asking for a long time.
You can always continue to petition the General Assembly to change the law.
And I believe Brunswick, like I say, there are certain things that might allow the flexibility that aren't breaking the laws that have been set, but I agree it may go against the the spirit of that particular guideline that was set for our calendar. But that's something that we can at least explore. Item number 8.3 is to receive information about the mass student selection process. And this will be presented by Ms. Dr. Heather Dietzler.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are you tonight? I am here to talk about the Cooperative Innovative High School Mass selection process, and this is to fulfill the requirement of 4A and 4B of the Carteret County Board of Education resolution approving the opening of Marine Science and Technology's Cooperative Innovative High School on schedule for 2020. So, Carteret County Public Schools convened a team to redesign the application process to ensure the following requirements are met from the resolution. 4A, quote, review the application and selection process for mass students to ensure that the program is adequately recruiting and admitting students in the categories of at-risk and first-generation college students, and who, upon completion of their high school community college degrees, have the vocational education and training needed to serve local aquaculture, commercial fishing, boat manufacturing, service, and other maritime-based employers. And 4B, review the impact on East Carteret High School and any other traditional high school of the loss of student enrollment and any potential loss of high-achieving students to MAST. So the rationale for this process was to select students representative of all high schools in Carteret County Public Schools to ensure that the 9th grade class is reflective of the population of the entire school system. This application process consists of 5 phases. So what phase 1 would look like is students would apply to the Mass Cooperative Innovative High School, and their applications would be scored and students would be placed in a spreadsheet according to those scores. Allotment numbers during this phase for each geographical district would also be figured so that the proportionate to the total incoming 9th grade ADM class of each high school would be admitted to Mass Cooperative Innovative High School. I just want to remind you that these are phases. They are not actual sequential steps, so they'll happen simultaneously as a system of checks and balances for the student population. After phase 1 and students apply, students are put into the spreadsheet and sorted based on the total score from the rubric, and then they would be sorted by academic diversity of proficient and non-proficient students in the area of reading for each geographical district. In the attempt to ensure that student selection process reflects the academic diversity of the school district, the 7th grade reading proficiencies will be used to sort students proportionally by proficient and non-proficient students. In situations where the applicant pool does not provide exact proportions for the next highest scoring student from that high school will be selected. Further sorting during phase 2 may be considered, such as gender or other identifying characteristics, and consideration will be given when determining this sorting so that the population maintains that mirror image of the high school. Okay. So then we hit phase 3, and this is if students would decline the invitation to MAST, they would be replaced with the next highest scoring student from the same geographical district, hopefully mirroring the same population and attributes that we are trying to balance the student population with. Phase 4, again, reflects on that same process, but if all the replacement selections of a particular demographic within the high school district decline the invitation to enroll in MAST after phase 3, the next highest scoring student would be invited to enroll as long as the overall demographics of the high schools are reflected, plus or minus the 5%, and we looked at the numbers, and 5% is basically one student coming from the population. The same proficiency selections as outlined in phase 3 will be used in phase 4 as well. Then we hit phase 5, which is the interesting one, and this is when we would consider non-Carteret County public school students for enrollment. Students in this category would also be selected using the similar process and outline as phase 1 through 4. Obviously, their data may look a little different, so it may not be proficient and non-proficient from the end of grade test, but it would be some other data point for their reading proficiency. It is mandated that the Cooperative Innovative High School maintain a minimum enrollment. And if the proportional slots are not filled by any other one high school, the district may then consider enrollment from the charter private homeschool students, again using those phases. Now that was a really brief summary of a multi-page document that you have in your notes, so I know you have questions.
Yeah. Dr. Deeser, first off, looking at the application component points earned and the breakdown, I was curious. I was noticing the pretty high proportion when you're looking at the weighting. It's weighted 75% between the recommendations, 2 teacher recommendations, and then 1 counselor principal recommendation. So 75 out of the 125 is based on those recommendations. I was just noticing that, and I was curious if it had been considered to maybe weight things a little bit more heavily towards the desired area of study, and maybe even the parent education level as well, where maybe the teacher recommendations were, worth 25% total, so you'd have teachers, and then, anyway, it just seemed like that recommendation part was kind of higher, and I just kind of was curious of your thoughts on it.
Well, I was thinking along those same lines, weighting the recommendations and the area of study, and of course the education level of the parents, because those are the 2 indicators that were noted in 4A. We haven't taken that conversation further yet. This was the basic outline that we brought forward, and we actually kind of mirrored it off of another county who does the same selection process. But what we don't want to do is not give enough weight to those teacher recommendations and the principal recommendations, so we'd have to look at that really carefully, because nobody knows those kids better than those people who work with them every day. So that is an area that we can consider looking at.
And where these teachers and counselors and so forth would hopefully be helping to pick these students who would benefit most from the MASS program, and along with the goals that you mentioned of the aquaculture, the lines of study that have been outlined at MASS. I know.
Travis, let me just finish that point too.
Okay.
We thought, because it's not a recommendation, that's a great kid, or that's a whatever. The recommendation is based off what the school is about. Who would you recommend? So we thought we'd have to do some training to say this is what a MASS kid, this is what's taught at that school. This is what they do, and these are the kids. So if you're going to recommend someone, you wouldn't recommend the valedictorian necessarily, because we're going for a kid who's going to be successful in that school. So that recommendation, that's why we put more weight on it, is because it's not just a recommendation, it's a recommendation of a kid who's absolutely appropriate for that school.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay. My other question was, I noticed in a couple different places it mentions the reflecting the district's academic diversity of the comprehensive high schools. And I was wondering if that was necessary or for what we were hoping to achieve at MASS, and whether it really is, how attainable that is if we're looking for trying to increase the trades and getting some of these students who we're hoping to target. It may not necessarily reflect the academic diversity of the whole county.
Interesting that you say that, because we've looked at the data of all the students who are currently enrolled at the Cooperative Innovative High School, and it very much reflects the academic diversity.
It does now, and I've wondered if that's what was intended when we got signed up in the first place.
I think so, because I think you can have students who are good performers and students who are not good performers on that one test during the year, but be really good students or become interested in school because they have a different opportunity.
Yeah, and specifically, I was referring to the number of university-bound students compared to the number of students who were hoping to feed back into the local community, taking local jobs and filling local jobs and helping our local community here. Because right now there's a large proportion of students that are university-bound and not maybe what we were hoping to achieve with MASS.
And I would say that it's hard to and I think we all agree that we're thinking that's maybe more of a vocational track, but it's probably very, very difficult to ask an 8th grader with good grades, you know, are you going to go vocational, are you going to go college now? So that's really difficult.
We know to a certain degree.
Yeah.
We know who's going where to a certain degree.
I don't know if you can say that in 8th grade.
And I can't comment on the proportion at this time.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
So if you have an average student, that reading score or something may not be that good, but they're a good student in what they're doing, and they want to go into auto mechanics or the other vocational with the Marines, propel engine repair and stuff like that. Are they going to be denied because their score is not reading such and such?
It all works out as to where they are placed on that list and who's selected and who's right for the school. That's why there are different phases that we look at. That's why the teacher recommendations are a big part of it. And that's why, you know, those 2 other indicators are in there as part of the application scoring now. And in the past, they weren't.
I appreciate the explanation about the appropriateness and the teachers, and I'm glad you're going to educate the teachers too who to look for. That makes sense.
I think that's where it's all going to fall into place, is from the recommendations. If a counselor or a teacher works with that student, and they truly know the passion of that student, how well they work, and what they're interested in, that's what it's going to fall into.
Once it's clear that everybody knows this is what our intentions are for this particular school and what students we're hoping to help.
And that's how it'll shake out, I believe.
I think so too. Any other questions?
Well, when the initial application went into the state to get the school going, I thought that first generation college was a main point in that.
There were 3: first generation college, at risk, and academically accelerated. So there were those 3.
So we think that parent education level is only worth the 25 points.
Well, that indicates the first generation, and
Right.
so as depending on the answers that are given, would give you a different point total. So
Because it seemed like the first year there were more first generation kids in the class versus the second year, and it seemed like the application was.
it will give those kids more points, and then they would fall higher on the list if they were first generation. So if you had someone in your family who was already in college, they wouldn't score as high, so they wouldn't be first to be selected. Does that make sense? Okay. Now it's just more focused on those 2 areas. Just want to say thank you so much. We appreciate all that you do to support the students of Carteret County, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, item 8.4 is to receive policy revision for second reading by Mr. Blair Brooks. I thought you were bringing pom-poms.
Pom-poms? That's right. Oh. I have to note that next time. Just a few policies for you tonight. I don't have a lengthy presentation. The second read policies, these again come from your fall 2018, spring 2019 updates from the School Board Association. They reflect the changes created from the State Board of Education, law, general statutes, those kind of things. Nothing was changed since your first review of these policies, so I don't have anything else to give you on those second read policies.
3 weeks. All right. Questions for Mr. Probst? Do I have a motion to receive, to approve the revised policy as presented? Maybe going once. So moved by Ms. Brittany Wheatley. Do
Thank
I have
you.
a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Godwin. First and a second, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First read policies are before you. 3 policies in particular. Policy 7300, which is staff responsibilities, that comes from the fall 2018 update packet. That revision specifically addresses new State Board of Education requirements regarding driver's education instructors to report certain convictions to the board, and a reporting requirement of the board to DPI as well. Mr. Whitford also wants to make some changes to that, so I'll be bringing that back to you next month with some additional changes. I did contact School Board Association in particular about this policy because we contract out our driver's education, and the attorney that I spoke to said the state board made this mandate. It doesn't matter if you have a contracted service or not. So we will have to talk to our contracted service to make them aware that they know that this new policy is in place by the state board, and it's our policy as well. So there are two other policies. The School Board Association has a fall update coming out. However, they sent us a pre-update to the fall update. Within those policies, there's policy 3228, 7323, use of personal technology to conduct school business. It is what it says. It addresses how our employees handle using their personal devices and forums to execute their duties. Mr. Whitford has reviewed this one as well, and we will be making a few subtle changes to it before it comes to you for second read, and I'll highlight those next board meeting. There is also policy 4334, 5035, 7345, use of unmanned aircraft, which is drones or drones, however you want to say it. It addresses the authorization and constraints of those devices on school property and during school events. And so Mr. Whitford's also looked at that one. We're going to make the change to the definition of school property to include the airspace over such property. So we will make that slight change to that one before it comes to you for second read. Additionally, with the second read, there's one regulation in front of you, and that is 6125. That's opioid antagonist devices, which are also called Narcans. These are all in our schools. This one has been issued to address the requirements and the uses of those in our schools. The regulation was actually drafted by another district and given to us by the School Board Association. So that's all I have for second read and regulations. I'll be happy to answer any questions I can.
Great.
Mr. Probst, are those designated school personnel, are they volunteered? Are they voluntold that they'll be trained?
For the Narcan?
Yeah. Well, I assume our school nurses are when they're...
School nurses are involved as well, but our SROs are all trained in using those. So I feel comfortable that the majority, if we ever had to use those, is more likely an SRO would do it than a nurse.
We've at this point, we've never had that. One time?
One time. That I know of. I'm sorry. I don't want to speak on my behalf. Yeah, unfortunately.
Other questions for Mr. Probst? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great. Okay. Next, item 9.1, we're going to receive an update on Carteret County Public School Foundation presented by Dr. Joe Barber, Foundation Chair.
Y'all are going to have to start meeting 2 nights in a row. This kind of thing going on.
Hurricane messed us up.
Thank you. This is my privilege to come to you once a year and talk about the foundation because I'm proud of its work and I'm very pleased about the support. First of all, I want to say specifically thank you for approving our reappointments in your consent agenda. As you may remember, our board is 12 volunteers, and we try to get volunteers from all over the county so that we don't concentrate in the center or one place in particular. These are all volunteers. In addition, your chairman, Mr. Day, is on the foundation, as is Mr. Bottoms, as voting ex officio members. And although it is an independent 501c3 organization, obviously your hands are all over it. Ms. Chadwick, thank you for giving her back to us for another 4 years. And I will say that when I called these people who had to re-up, of all of them, she was the only one that did not hesitate. Now the others didn't hesitate much, but she didn't hesitate at all. So we're real glad to have her back. Mr. Whitford is also a member of our board, and Tabby Nance, of course, she's the wheels that make the organization run. And we would not be where we are today if we hadn't had the expertise of Mr. McLean in the early days of forming this 501c3. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All donations are tax deductible, and all donations, since we have no paid staff at all, no administrative expenses at all, virtually, all the money that is donated is dispersed back out to the public schools. The mission of the Carteret County Public School Foundation, I'm going to read this, and I found out that if I raise it to 16, I still can't see it without my glasses, but it's to support the students, educators, schools, and educational programs of the Carteret County Public School System. The foundation focuses on enriching education for all students, supporting faculty, encouraging support of public education by securing funds for innovative projects that cannot be funded with local, state, or federal dollars. I like to think of it as, we target that gap between the budgets that you have, and you just heard you have multiple budgets, but what your innovative faculty and staff really want to accomplish, and they can't do it with that. So that's that gap that will help propel them into that standard of excellence that Mr. Bottoms mentioned to you. Individuals can give to the foundation in two ways. They can give designated money that says that I want my money to be spent this way, and it will be spent that way down to the penny. Or they can give it undesignated, like to memorialize a family member or a teacher that was really had a positive influence on them. And then we get to work with the staff, the faculty, and everything to actually address their needs. So we really like the undesignated money. So when you're out there and somebody says, I love our school system, what can I do to support it? Mention the foundation and say, and just give it to them and let them do what the teachers and the students need. We've got, give you an idea of some of the things that we've done in the past. We give student scholarships for summer programs like science and math programs. We've given robots to robotics teams. If you ever have an opportunity to observe what some of those kids do with those things, you really need to see it. We've given laptops, carts, printers, new book collections. We've given therapeutic play equipment. These are, these come to us. We don't make these up. People come to us and say, we don't have a budget for this, but this would really help my program, really help my students. The support we gave to the Hill Center, which is a nationally ranked reading program, and we have, I think, don't we have all of our teachers at some level now trained, or most?
Many of them.
Many of them. And that's something that we are proud of being able to do. And also something that you might not be aware of, but in the aftermath of the Florence hurricane, one of the staff members came to us and said, she had discovered some specialized training to help teachers learn how to reach students who are dealing with trauma while they're in the classroom. And what can be more traumatic than suddenly being displaced from your home and having to live in some of the conditions that people had to live with? So we were able to send some people to that training so they could come back and train others. Since its inception, and it's fairly recent in the history of our school system, but we've taken in over $1.2 million. And we have invested over $900,000 of that so far in our schools to date. Again, the only thing that slows us down from spending that money out is sometimes it's designated in ways that we have to do what the donor wanted us to do. So again, we'd like to have the undesignated so that we can do more and spread that out. We've been very involved. As you know, last year I reported about what we have done to help students and staff members, our employees, and their families after hurricane. So to date, we've taken in well over $400,000 specifically for Florence hurricane relief, and that's in addition to the $1.2 million that I just mentioned. So that's another $400 and some thousand. And of that, we've given out more than $350,000 so far to help these hurricane victims. To give you an idea, kind of a background, when Florence hit, the immediate need was food, gas, clothing, lumber, tarps, those things that had to be dealt with immediately. Then it moved more to rebuilding, finding other housing. The need shifted to utility bills, appliances, temporary stays in hotels, furniture, bedding, mattresses, those kinds of things, just so that people could start to get back to some of their security. Now we're still putting roofs on the houses, and you see there's still lots of blue tarps around there. But we only do this after the family has exhausted their own insurance, if they have it, or FEMA funds. So we don't get in front of that, but we help them go through those funds and then try to pick up whatever's left over. Now, I mean, we're looking at repairing septic tanks, drain lines where trees have fallen in. People have had to move out of their homes because septic systems backed up. We're replacing floors, walls, just, you can imagine. And it has not stopped. The donations continue to come in, and the needs continue to be there. Now we're also partnering with other support groups for funding and for resources, all in an effort to stretch our own donation dollars. And we just received, you'll read about this in the paper, I'm sure, a $25,000 donation from the North Carolina Community Foundation specifically for Florence relief. And that, I want to make a point about that and why it's important to have this foundation associated with the school system. That money came to the North Carolina Community Foundation as a statewide effort specifically to deal with Florence. So they divided that money up among the counties that had been impacted. So then they had the money coming here, but we already had the protocols established. So we were a natural partner for them to reach out to. Of course, there's a horse somewhere on Tabby's farm that's responsible for it too, because a member of the North Carolina Community Foundation happened to have a horse out there. So when she found out that we were already doing that, that's what I'm saying. We already had the protocols in place, the infrastructure, as you will, so it was a natural for them to do that. The impact of Florence, although it has dwindled and we continue to work on it, it's going to go on for months. It could go on for years. And so we will continue to work on that. I just want to say the $1.2 million that we've received to date, and those donations that continue to come in, I think they're a reflection of the reputation of our schools and the high regard our citizens have for it. And I want to say that is to your credit. People are proud of our schools and they do want to support it, and the foundation gives them a way to do that. The almost $500,000 that has flowed into our foundation from literally around the country, I mean literally, we get donations from I don't know how many states, but literally from all over. And I think that's a testimony to the generosity of people, all people in the face of disaster. And in any event, I just want to say, you manage an excellent school system. We are proud to be partners with you in that and seeing to the quality of life and the increased educational opportunity for our students. And once again, thank you very much for all you do to keep this foundation going.
Dr. Barb, I'd like to thank you for all your hard work on this. I don't know how in the world we could have ever managed all the generosity that was funneled into our county if it hadn't have been for the foundation. Not only from community members here, but like Dr. Barber said, all over the country, everywhere. And it would have been impossible without the foundation. And also a shout out to Ms. Tabby Nance, who managed the needs, you know, and helping to funnel stuff where they needed it. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for both of y'all.
Well, let me say one thing that because I can't toot Tabby's horn too much, and I appreciate that comment. But the protocols that we have in place, the families or the students that are mentioned to us or we are alerted to, they come from counselors and teachers and people like that. Sometimes from the families themselves, but more often it's somebody else who says, you know, we can help you. Not somebody saying, I need help. But that goes to Tabby. And then Tabby vets that by talking with the counselors and sometimes goes actually to the residence itself in order to verify that that is a need. So we know that that money is going where we intended to go, and that's because of Tabby's hard work. So thank you for mentioning that.
And
Thank
I
you.
do want to say Brad Piner is the best man to write checks.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need a CPA, Brad Piner.
He is, and he's our other, yeah, that's got to be his sideline job, just dealing with the foundation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda, we have a received tuition fee for 2019-2020 submitted by Kathy Carswell.
The out-of-district student tuition announcement for 2019-2020 is $2,904. That's calculated by taking the local expense funding of $23,090,000 and dividing it by the final monthly average daily membership for the 9th month ADM, which was 7,951. When you do that calculation, it comes out to 2,904. Any questions?
How does that compare with the other counties? Are we still with about the same level with Onslow, Craven, the ones around us?
Well, typically it would be based on their local appropriation and their ADM. So it's according to how much your county commissioners are supporting your school system.
Mr. Bottoms, can you explain for everyone when this tuition might be charged? This is very rare
Right.
that this happens, but can you explain?
It essentially comes down to a parent wanting their child to go to our schools, live outside of our county, and because we're a great school system, and so we want to do that, and so we charge them what our local government gives us for each child.
In certain cases only.
Right. Now, we do have other cases in which we don't charge. And for instance, if a teacher resides outside of our county, we give our teachers that perk of being able to bring their children back into our county. And so there's some of those examples when we don't charge. But typically the charge is when it's just black and white. They want to come here for a great education. And we're very, very conservative in that approach. We don't take a lot of those because a lot of our schools that are right next to the county line, White Oak, Croatan, all those are really at capacity. So we don't overfill our schools with kids from outside of our district. So they're rare, but there is on occasion that we take someone from outside the county.
They have to provide their own transportation.
They do.
Correct?
Yeah.
Any questions from Ms. Carswell? Thank you. Okay. Item 10.1 is to consider the unexpired term appointment to Carteret County Community. What?
It's in information.
Oh, that last one wasn't a vote, was
I'm
it?
sorry.
No. Okay. All right, that's okay. All right, item 10.1 is to consider the unexpired term appointment to the Carteret Community College Board of Trustees. Okay, so letters of interest were submitted by the following individuals listed in alphabetical order prior to October 22nd deadline. We had Mr. Blake Beadle, Robin Comer, Robert Oates, and Catherine Walston. So we are going to consider one of these individuals for appointment to the unexpired term at the Community College Board of Trustees. This term of the appointment will end on June 20th, 2020. Discussion about our potential appointees.
Can I make a motion and then we can discuss?
Certainly.
Okay. I moved, Mr. Chair, to appoint Mr. Robin Comer to the Carteret Community College Board of Trustees.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
And should we go ahead and do a second first before we actually have discussion?
You would take other nominations?
Oh, other nominations. Other nominations.
I'll move for Blake Beadle, one of those nominees.
Okay, 2 nominees. Do we have further nominees?
Close the nominations.
Okay, well then, do I have a motion to close the nomination?
So moved.
So move it in a second.
A second.
Okay, all right, we have a motion second. All in favor of closing the nominees? All right. So next, discussion on our nominees, Mr. Beadle and Mr. Comer.
Well, he's been a former Board of Education member and business person. I support him being on the committee because I think he'll do a lot of good knowing about a lot of business things. Working as a banker too, so money situations he knows a lot about. That's why I would support him.
Other discussion.
So, Mr. Chair, I want to thank all the applicants, including Mr. Blake Beadle, who I have absolute wonderful respect for, who was a visionary when he sat on this board. He brought a lot of energy and passion, but I also feel the same way about Mr. Comer. I think Mr. Comer has spent many years studying how the education system operates both the K-12 levels and the community college. He's been an advocate in improving communication between the boards of commissioners, us, and the college board, which I think historically has turned into a very symbiotic relationship that has accomplished a lot of good. He's expressed his desire to advance academics at the college, as well as promote upcoming vocational skills that would be an asset to our community. In fact, I saw his passion and supported MAST, that he thought that these skill sets, there was a void, and he stood his ground and was an independent thinker, and supported us in continuing that program. So I think he'll be a vital asset to our community, and I support him as a member.
I'd echo those comments, but other discussion on Mr. Comer.
I agree. I believe that when you have heard him speak, especially if you've been to a commissioner meeting, he is very vocal about trades and community college programs, and I think he would be an excellent choice.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion? This point in time, let's see. What's our procedure for
You would
the
call the
actual
vote and do it in alphabetical order would be my recommendation. You could do it in order that you received the nominations, but I think alphabetical order would be.
Okay, so voting one by one then. Okay. All right, so we'll do a vote alphabetical order. I believe that's Ms. Chadwick.
No, I'm sorry, the candidates would be alphabetical order.
Oh, I thought we were wanting to vote one by one. Okay. So, all right.
It would be Blake Beadle.
So, Mr. Blake Beadle, then, all in favor for Mr. Blake Beadle, please raise your right hand. Okay. So, next, Mr. Robin Comer, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, Mr. Comer has it. So, thank you again, though, to all of our applicants. We appreciate everybody trying to be involved and taking an interest in our community, and we encourage people to continue to stay involved and try to seek positions like this. We need interested people. It's always good to have too many applicants and not enough, that's for sure. So thank you to everyone, and congratulations to Mr. Comer. Okay. Let's see, item 10.2, we're going to receive facility support operations update, and that is presented by Mr. Matt Bottoms, but submitted by Kenny Peterson, who's going to be doing the presenting?
I'll knock that out, yep. The Bogue Sound chiller has been completed. The Harkers Island chiller has been completed. The air conditioning equipment in the 600 building at Newport Elementary is complete. The lead abatement at Newport Elementary is complete. We're waiting on the final inspection from the Health and Human people. The White Oak gym air conditioning should be done by the end of the week. The painting at the Carteret Preschool Center, they're down to the last punch list items. And then the West Carteret, which has been an ongoing project since the summer, they are 85% complete and hope to have that done probably over the Christmas break, since they got to do a lot of interior work.
Have those tiles been completely removed on that science hall that was being worked on that floor?
Are we talking West Carteret?
Yes.
No, they're not. We still got. Where's Kenny?
Those 6 science rooms still got.
They still got that.
They're in a different project.
What about the water situation pipes and stuff where they don't have water in those rooms. Do
The
anything with it.
water access is better than the sewage access. It's a sewer problem. We can't get the water out. So it's the same. There's no repair to that. They have to be taken. It's kind of like we did at East Carteret. You just got to dig it up and start all over.
So each one of those tables has got the spigots. All we're going.
They look really good. It's just appearance. Yeah, we've got, and that's in our short range plan actually to get that repaired. It needs to be fixed. And Kenny, I don't know how many of the waters work and
Estimated about $100,000 per room
to get that going.
to do a total renovation of each individual sites.
So, and those rooms are 55 years old, so it is time to invest some money. So we got to look at that as a long range capital project. It'll be expensive. Move on to
Yes,
my
please.
report. The advisory chair from Croatan mentioned about their band. I did want to elaborate on that. The Croatan band, the symphonic band, will be playing Monday in Winston-Salem at the Music Educators Conference. This will be the first for Carteret County ever, and Carteret County has had some magnificent band directors. And then they had me. So that is it's quite a feat that they've accomplished that. So we're very proud of Croatan being selected to be one of those bands. And this kind of clinic thing, this is how it should be done. And they'll play for about 30, 45 minutes. We'll be there to see that. That'll be exciting. Not to shortchange West Carteret. The Marching Patriots are going to Indianapolis to the Grand National Championships. And that will be next week as well. And that's again in Indianapolis. So that should be fun. Croatan, that was also mentioned about the Wells Fargo Cup. And just to put that in perspective, they are the #1 athletic program in the state in the 2A division. That's what that means. And they get points for all their first places, second places. And that's how that came out to be. So, and she went over it really quick, but it is quite impressive what they were able to do. And that's a first for that school in its history. I was with Rolanda the other day when Beth Gillikin was celebrated at Smyrna for her award, for the national award, and the entire student body was there, and the entire student body was thrilled that their teacher was representing, little old Smyrna right there in the middle, and it was quite a special time. Kathy and the finance folks, congratulations, excellent audit. Heather put together the mass thing, and she did a 5-10 minute presentation, and it took hours. It was many hours to get that done, and she made it look simple, but it was so much to do. And I finally want to recognize Sue and Jess for what they've been through the past week or two. They did, as the advisory council mentioned, they did lead a tough situation, and their leadership was certainly valued, and we appreciate that. So that's my report.
Thank you. We'll now receive comments from board members.
I think Mr. Mellon should have both ends from now on. He takes all the good stuff. He should be last.
I should be last.
I'm always fearful that I'm going to leave someone out. If I do, I'm sure that one of my other board will pick up. I would like to thank Miss Kathy Carswell and her team. Miss Kathy works tirelessly, and I have gone through several small audits, and I wouldn't sleep for about a week, so I can't imagine what Miss Kathy goes through, and I know she takes her job to heart. She really does. She answers lots of phone calls, lots of questions, and she did a tough job. I'd also like to wish Miss Chadwick a happy birthday. Her birthday was on Tuesday. And oh no, you won't be the same. No. And I did want to mention Miss Emery and Miss Kreiser. I know that you guys have had a terrible month. You guys handled yourself with dignity and grace, and that's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but you guys are very professional, and I am very thankful that you guys are at Beaufort Middle, and Ms. Kaiser is on the team. And I'd also like to congratulate Ms. Gillikin. I know that she has worked really hard to get where she is, and her students absolutely adore her, and she has had lots of congratulations, and she has a great school, and I'm so excited for her. And also, Veterans Day, I'd like to thank all of our veterans. It's on Monday. There's a parade on Saturday at 11, if you guys can make it out. Our very own Miss Ehlers is a veteran herself, and so I'd like to thank all of those veterans for their sacrifice.
I also wanted to thank Ms. Emery and Dr. Kreiser. That was just an incredibly difficult tragedy, and I really appreciate how you handled it. And I heard you mention that you're going to report back to central office some of the things that you did. I don't think you could have handled it better, and I'm sorry that you went through it, but thank you for handling it the way you did. On a lighter note, Ms. Carswell, thank you so much. Those are the kind of things that keep me up at night when Adam comes up here to present. And, I don't know if there's an exception or not, but I applaud you for what you're doing and your whole team, so make sure you pass that along. The Carteret County Public School Foundation is just an unbelievable vehicle right here in our county that helps our students and staff and families. And I did get to see firsthand how it worked, and it was so impressive. I think we all have our own stories, but knowing that Tabby works for the school system and is also handling that, she was buying food for people, she was buying temporary lodging for people. There's just a lot of stories, and she doesn't get enough credit, and she hates the credit, but it is so deserving, and I just want to thank you and everyone else that serves on that board. It's a phenomenal organization. Dr. Diesel, thank you for your presentation. I know there was a lot of work that went behind it. It was a quick presentation, but thank you for everything that you did. Also want to commend the young man that spoke earlier tonight. That's a difficult situation to speak in front of public to begin with, but I appreciate him stepping up and speaking for himself. So, and I can't say enough good things about the system as a whole. Mr. Bottoms, you're leading a remarkable system, and we see that every day, whether it's a clean audit report or whether it's high schools ranking #1 in the state. And I just want to make sure you get the credit you deserve. So, and your team. So, thank you.
That good.
Also, I'd like to congratulate the Finance Department for doing a great job. It's a good way to say that our system watches the books closely and monitors things the way it should do, and so congratulations, Finance Department, for getting your award and all from the state and recognition on that. Also, would like to comment about the sports programs having great seasons. Croatan on winning the Wells Fargo Cup for the best 2A program in the state, and next week starts football playoffs, and so the teams that are going there further on, good luck to them. Also like to congratulate all educators for American Education Week this month. That's a special thing where, teachers are appreciated for what they do and as well as what they do for students. Also like to put a thing in about Veterans Day to honor Monday, the Veterans Day, and the parade on Saturday, which I'm going to be participating in the parade on Saturday, representing the Board of Education. Also would like to say a little, this is American Diabetes Month for the United States, and this is one of the 3rd leading causes of eye and heart problems among Americans. There's over close to, I think they said 3 million Americans have diabetic problems, and it's just something that we need to be aware of. There's a lot right here in North Carolina too. Also would like to thank for the report on the Public School Foundation, and also congratulations to the bands, Croatan and West, on their accomplishments and going off to their winning areas to show their talents. It's something that just is an area that a lot of times don't get enough recognition, and these students work hard. I've watched practices in the afternoons, and they really go at it just like athletics. They treat it the same way. So it's something to be proud of for this county to have such good programs and the support behind that. And as far as everything else, the programs that we have in Carteret County are some of the best in the state, and people realize that, and they make comments all the time, well, what are you doing? And I just said, our teachers are just doing a great job with teaching the kids, and that's what counts.
I want to congratulate Ms. Jenna Rutledge on her state golf championship win. That is exceptional. If anybody has ever followed golf, they understand the pressure that not only is that a elite athlete, but being able to hold her own mentally. It's quite a skill. So congratulations to her. That's wonderful. To the finance team, it was wonderful to actually see the faces behind Kathy. Kathy always stands out, and she said, "Hey, there's a team behind me." So I'm going to say the names again. Congratulations to not just Kathy, but to Debbie, Casey, Serena, and Kim. It was very nice to have all of you here, and congratulations on a clean
And
statement.
Julie?
And Julie. Thank you. That would be tough, yes. Also, I do want to make a comment about the calendar as we analyze it. You know, there was a lot of policy, as Mr. Whitford said, that went into looking at why we should delay the start of the school year. It was balance. They would boost late sale seasons for tourism, would provide families more vacation time, even perhaps with energy costs, with AC. There's a laundry list of reasons that went into it. But I think no matter what we do when we look at it, we have to look at the best way to advance student achievement. And so that, sometimes we have to think outside the box. I'm not sure what we'll come up with, what everyone would look at what's best. But it's ultimately, we have been a very successful county in balancing all the needs, but always paramount is the student needs. So I just wanted to let everybody know and keep that under advisement. Also to Ms. Emery and Ms. Sue Kreiser, again, thank you so much for all that you did. And it was a very tragic loss of a beautiful life in your school. So I hope that we can use this opportunity. I talked a little bit to Ms. Emery about this in the beginning. One of the things that we were really blessed with, about a year and a half ago, we were able to get the 4 mental health counselors in place, and then we had county commissioners behind that. We found out we could get that federally funded. So I think we should look at this opportunity as a way to possibly enhance that number as we look at our new budget, because this is vital. One life, if we can get a program and we can get more visual on ground in the schools, taking the stigma out of anybody ever struggling, never hesitating to use the available resources. So I hope we can take charge of that this year and advance that. And I know we are, but more so ever. Also, my condolences go out to, we lost another student, speaking of diabetes. So my son is a type 1 diabetic. And there was a child that was one of ours that went to ECU, and he lost his life this past month to the complications. So again, with the National Diabetes Month, prayers and condolences go out to his family. Finally, I just want to say, yes, with Veterans Day coming up, how grateful I am to this county. When I came here, I was a recalled Marine to active duty at Cherry Point in charge of the deployment law for all Marines deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan. I came here with 4 children. My husband was geographically up in his job in Virginia, and I was embraced and supported by this county, and particularly the teachers. I didn't know a soul, and I had 4 little ones, and I was throwing them into schools. So this county has done over and above for this particular Marine, and I just want to thank you because you've been great in supporting your vets, and I'm up here because of that, so thank you.
So everybody's kind of took my thunder. But thank you, Kathy, and your team. It's exciting that Beth Gilligan has been to DC, and I guess next month we're going to celebrate for her. And Jessica, thank you, and everybody at Beaufort Middle for doing all that you could and handling the situation. Heard nothing but positive things, so thank you. And thanks to everybody that makes the system a great one. Takes a village, and we've got a good one.
Thank you. I'll echo all the thanks that everybody else has already extended to all of you. So I do appreciate that. I also wanted to make one more comment slash shout out. Wanted to thank Mr. Tom O'Connor and Adam Olander and Moorhead Middle School for their extremely hard work in raising $84,000 to refinish the hardwood floors, refinish the floors and install hardwood floors at Moorhead Middle School gym, which is sorely overdue for a long time. We have a lot of needs in our county, and unfortunately, with all the needs we have, that was one that just wasn't quite up there at the top, where we needed it, but other things had taken priority. So these guys stepped up large to the tune of $84,000 to get this done without the school system having to spend a penny. I would hope and ask, I'm going to put a little bit of plug in, kind of hope that maybe, I know that they are on a painting schedule. Everybody's on a painting schedule for the schools. If there's a possibility of getting them, because of this hard work, getting them moved up in the painting schedule a little bit, where we could get that painted before they install the hardwood floors, they're going to be doing it over winter break. So if there's any chance of that, I'll talk to you later or whatever. But anyway, I at least want to put out a plea for that, because that would be really great to get it done before they get those floors in. That just kind of only makes sense. But otherwise, awesome job to that crowd. And thank you again to everybody for all the hard work y'all do. Okay. With that being said, I want to now we have to consider a confidential matter pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318.11 for attorney-client communication. So, do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chair, I make that motion to go into closed session pursuant to what you just stated.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ehlers. And the second by Mr. McLean. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, meeting adjourned. We will now convene to closed session.